Hi everyone, thanks for joining us tonight or this morning. We have guests from all over the world, from US, EU and Armenia. I think, do we need to wait a little bit so people join, then we start the conversation, or? Okay. Okay, then I'll go ahead. So I'm Sargis Karapetyan, the CEO and co-founder at Embry Tech. I'll be moderating today's panel. We are going to dive deep into peculiarities of fundraising for hardware startups. The panel discussion is conducted in the framework of Armenia Startup Academy Traction Program. The program is implemented by Catalyst Foundation and supported by the European Union's EU for Business Technology Development for Armenia project implemented by GIZ. Viva MTS joins the initiative as corporate partner and supporter. If you have questions down the road, please ask them in the comments. We'll cover them during the QA session. So as I mentioned, we have guests from all over the world, and we have two parts, entrepreneurs and investors, to cover the topic 3D. So now let me introduce my guests. Garrett Winther, partner and program director at Hacks. Aksel Piran, co-founder and COO at Conscious Labs and angel investor. Arthur Manukyan, chief business development officer at Crowdfunding Formula and crowdfunding expert. Tigran Shahverdyan, co-founder and CTO at Robomart. So Tigran is presenting from the entrepreneur side. Aksel will be talking from the boss side. And Garrett and Arthur will be talking from the investor perspective. I'll be also adding my perspective as an entrepreneur as well. So could you please briefly introduce yourself from the experience in investing or fundraising perspective? How many investments you had, how many rounds you had, or what was the round size? How did it go, like such like? Aksel, could you please start?
Yes, I'm before everything an entrepreneur. So I had experience with hardware in a previous startup. We actually managed to ship VR 360-degree cameras, raised over 10 million and burned through 10 million. So it's a good experience. We managed to sell $7 million of camera, and still it was not enough to raise a big Series A round. And now I'm managing a startup doing brain sensors, neurosensors for consumer brain-computer interfaces. So I had these two experiences. It raised $1 million in this current experience as well. And as an investor, of course, in general, I invested in 35 startups. A few of them in hardware, including Embry Tech. Voilà, maybe we will come to this detail later. Maybe.
Okay. Arthur, can you continue?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. So I'm Arthur, head of partnerships and business development at the Crowdfunding Formula. And we actually help companies and startups, individuals to have the most successful crowdfunding campaigns for their companies, for their products on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. During the last few years, we have raised around $30 million on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And we have fully managed more than 20 campaigns and partially worked with more than 100 campaigns recently.
Cool. Garrett, please.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Garrett. I'm a partner and program director at Hacks, as well as SOSV. So SOSV is a global venture capital firm. It's around $750 million in assets under management, and we invest in hardware, life sciences, basically anything that's not as easy as software, and going and finding kind of interesting spaces to invest. At Hacks, we are focused on hardware, so robotics, new sensing, connectivity, materials, life sciences. And really our goal is to be some of the first money in. So we write about $250,000 checks to begin with, and then we'll invest in teams up to $3 million as they grow. So I've personally kind of had a few startups in the past, as well as working in some large corporates on some very large projects. So full range of things. Joined Hacks about 1.5 years ago, and have been a part of about 50 investments, 50 investments. So we're investing in about 35 companies a year from all over the world, including Robomart, who's on the call, and a couple other, I think a few other Armenian founders in the mix there as well. So done about 250 investments as Hacks over the last 8 years. So really exciting portfolio, and probably, hopefully, a few of the companies you've heard of in the past as well.
Thanks. Tigran?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Tigran, co-founder and CTO of Robomart. We are building store hailing service. Basically, it's mobile stores that you can hail to your door and do your shopping at your doorstep. We've done our pre-seed round previously, and right now we are in the middle of fundraising for the seed round. We already have some progress. Some of our investors already recommitted their pro rata. We have very good investors like SOSV, as you already mentioned, Wasabi Ventures, Archetype, our Automation Fund, Hustle Fund, and some really good angel investors that supported us during our pre-seed. My previous company, RoboCV, is also a hardware startup, which is based in Moscow. We raised about $4 million during 2 rounds, and we built autonomous vehicles, autonomous forklifts for warehouses. The company is still operational. They are supplying different companies with the robots, and we had some great customers like Volkswagen, and some other big companies in Russia, FM Logistic, Samsung. Yeah, so nice to be here.
Thanks. So such a vast experience. It's going to be interesting. I would like to add also my experience. So I'm the CEO and co-founder at Embry Tech. We are building a smart insole which automatically tracks body weight and physical activity and helps people to manage the weight and lead healthy lives. We have, so far we have raised around $500,000 in grants and investments from VCs like SmartGate VC, Hive, and many angels. One of them is here, Aksel. So this is our experience with fundraising. So as we have people from the both perspectives, investor and entrepreneurs, it will be really interesting to hear your thoughts on where to start. What are the available sources for the beginners, like really beginning? You have an idea, you want to start. What are the available resources? We have Garrett from US. I would like to cover that part. So in US, what are the available sources when you just start in the beginning?
So I think our when you first have an idea or first have an insight, we often push teams to spend as little money as possible, or how do you build out a plan that doesn't require any money? So that means that you're testing your idea with sketches, with small prototypes that you can make yourself, and going and talking to customers. So those are often the resources that you can do for free. Once you have a little bit of understanding of your customer, there are a strong angel network, both here in the United States and abroad, and oftentimes bringing either those big ideas or the insights or what you're hearing from your customers into that angel network is probably the very first set of resources that I would test, and that will test whether your idea is good for venture investment and if you have a complete business in place. And then I think with that, you then can start looking at other ecosystems, or if you need to quit your job, finding more money to go and move into either startup incubators, hubs, accelerators, and finding a home in which you can find a community to actually support your early stage idea. The worst thing you can do as a founder is be all by yourself. So finding other co-founders or finding other startups to be along with you, and oftentimes those are the things that help you most of those early stages.
Absolutely. Thanks, Garrett. Tigran, as you raised in US, but you are familiar with Armenian ecosystem, I would like to hear your thoughts. Comparison, like you have an idea in Armenia and you have an idea in US. So what are the go-tos in terms of funding?
Okay, it's hard to compare because I've seen them from different perspectives. But I know there are just a handful of funds in Armenia right now. There's SmartGate, obviously. There is Hive, which is investing in Armenian entrepreneurs, not only in Armenia. There is I forgot that there's another fund. But I've never raised myself in Armenia, so it's hard to tell. I know that there's also some, not a big, but there's still angel investor community. So there are even 2 networks, as far as I understand, that you can reach out to and pitch your company. But I see that there are opportunities in Armenia to really fundraise for the beginning, for pre-seed, even for seed, and yeah, then also the investors, I've seen that they are helping a lot. They have really good connections abroad, and they can help a lot with scaling and going on further with the next steps. Like a lot of companies, are right now in Skydeck. Yeah, so I think it's there are really interesting opportunities in Armenia.
Cool, thank you. Aksel, what about EU compared to US?
Well, I can talk about France.
Yeah.
So in France, the way to go is to get the grants. It's a place where it's quite comfortable if you have a good team with some pedigree from your past as an employee, or if you're fresh from school, if it's a major school. It's not so hard to get the first 100 to 200K to get to some kind of prototype, and then on get to local angels. But the investor scene for hardware startups is not vibrant in France. So from my experience, you will have to go with small business angels who will write checks from sometimes 100K, but most of the time 10, 15K. So it's a lot of work. It's a constant effort to bring this money that you need. But it's doable. It's doable. But of course, everybody wants to do his Series A in the US. I mean, this is the truth. It's a good place to start because you can get access to this 200K. But the first thing you want to do is to go to a better place for hardware startups. Well, that's the current situation.
Thanks. Arthur, do you have something to add from?
Yes, I'll add a few things to what Tigran said, except the funds that Tigran mentioned. There is also the Business Angel Network of Armenia, which can also support companies in finding early stage funding. And in cases, for example, the startups have already gone through some process. They have like prototypes and they are getting ready for a crowdfunding campaign. There is the Sprint Initiative, Sprint Crowdfunders Fund, which is a initiative crowdfunding formula. And it's not only available in Armenia, it's available worldwide, and it provides funding to cover the marketing expenses for a crowdfunding campaign.
Thanks. I would like to add from Armenian community perspective. I have been raising from Armenia. So we have, when we were starting, there were no that much of angel networks and investors. But today we have added to the mentioned ones. I would like to add also AICA, Angel Network, mainly Armenians from abroad, really professional angels. BANA, Business Angel Network of Armenia, and FAST Foundation. They have STAN Angel Network, and we have really great grants from EU and World Bank. Myself, we started with our first investment was for funding we got from EU. It was 50K grant, and then SmartGate came in and it started moving. So we have also Granatus, Hive, and SmartGate as venture capital funds who invest in early stages. So the thing is that what I would advise from my perspective is that learn as much as you can, talk to these available investors, and be prepared. The thing is, when you start from Armenia, it might seem there is no money available, there is no funding, but the reality is different. There is money, but you are not ready to get them. So you are not investable. So if you are not getting investments, then work on yourself, work on your company. Arthur, I would like to hear, what do you think? Is the crowdfunding a good start? So if you have an idea and just the beginning, can you start with crowdfunding?
Yeah, so usually for a crowdfunding campaign to be successful, you usually have to have at least prototypes, which are at least like 80–90% ready, close to the final production model. So you can't start from scratch, but at least you have a prototype ready. Like you have already reached that point where you have the prototype ready, then you can start like thinking about doing a crowdfunding campaign.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so but before that, it's like highly not recommended to do any crowdfunding campaigns at like idea stage. The success rate is like very, very low.
I see. So then, do startups need funding to launch a crowdfunding campaign? And if yes, what is the average?
Sure. So for a crowdfunding campaign, yes, startups do need funds, mostly to cover their marketing expenses. Usually, a lot of people like not doing enough research about crowdfunding. They think that you just like make the campaign page design and launch it on Kickstarter and Indiegogo and it will work by itself, but that's not the point anymore. It may have been like, I don't know, 10 years ago when crowdfunding was a new thing. Right now, the competition is like very, very high. Like every day, thousands of campaigns launch and you need to compete with them. You have to gain the traffic, to bring the traffic to your campaign page so that they won't go to any other campaign page. So the investments usually are, on average, I would say around, you might want to have a marketing budget which is 15% on average, 15 or maybe 20%, depending on the product, of course, of the total amount you want to raise. So for example, if you want to raise $1 million, you'll need like 150, in some cases, maybe $200,000 available as the marketing budget.
So am I getting you right? So for startup, in order to launch a successful crowdfunding campaign and raise above $500,000, they need at least 50 to 100K marketing budget to go for that, to go and launch.
In best case scenarios, it's like 10%. On average, it's 15%. Sometimes it reaches up to 20%, but it's like not that often.
Okay, thanks. Aksel, can you add to this topic? I know you have the experience of doing so.
Well, it's in the case of going for the crowdfunding, it's amazing if you can hit 1 million or more. But if you end up with a campaign doing 100K or 200K, you end up with a problem probably bigger than you had before you needed to find money, because you become a company prototyping something quietly in an office, and suddenly you become a product company, and you have customer requests, and you don't have even and 200K is not going to even be enough to produce anything seriously. So it may be, I see a lot of these campaigns in hardware with complicated products doing 100, 200, 300K, and I feel for them, it's really, maybe it can help. It's not even enough to help an investor say, okay, there is a lot of business in this product, let's go ahead and put 10 million and help these guys do it. So it's a decision that is not easy to make, in my opinion. In my previous experience, we did have a pre-order campaign of 2.5 million, and even that, as Garrett would say, it was not enough to prove the traction was enough to justify a Series A. So it's really not the simplest thing, in my opinion. So in my current startup, what we are doing is trying to push as much as possible the moment of making an actual product as possible to as latest as possible. Instead of doing a full product, we try to sell these neurosensors alone for parts of the final product to other manufacturers, just not to have to make this decision.
So to summarize, we can say that if you have an idea, crowdfunding is not way to go anymore. You need to build funding to build a prototype and put together decent marketing strategy, and crowdfunding will be your launching point.
Yeah, if it makes sense, I agree with Arthur. But from the perspective of an entrepreneur, I also agree with him, is that you need to have a lot of success in your campaign to make it worthwhile.
I can just add some statistics, like, for example, how many campaigns raise more than, only 1% of all launching campaigns are able to reach more than $100,000, and only 0.1% of all campaigns reach more than $1 million. So that's tough.
Okay, thank you. So I have a specific question for entrepreneurs. Tigran, if you had asked, or if you ask to your investors, why do they invest in you? Why they did that decision? What would be the answer? What do you think?
Sure. I just want to add a few words to my previous question, because I just think it's important. Okay. I forgot to tell about the fundraising in US, just a few words. I think from my experience, it's very important to become the part of the community here, so that you have enough network so you can talk to people, present, they can take you seriously, or so there are several ways, I think, for that. Either you need to spend previously some time here, let's say go to school, have a PhD from some known university, or even if you dropped out, that's also not bad, have connections from there. Even the title that you have from this university also helps a lot. You need to spend some time here, start talking the way people talk here. It's a very specific jargon, I would say, so people really understand when you are not from here. Another way is also very helpful is the accelerators. If you get to the accelerators, when let's say you are coming from abroad, you get to the accelerator, it's really helpful because they train you, they coach you, they have the network, they introduce you to people, and I mean, SOSV was really helpful in that regard. I would say that they are really helping us. So yeah, these are, in my experience, the main ways if you want to get to investors in US for them to take you seriously. And coming back to the current question, I think as Garrett is here, I would like to defer to him to the question, and then if I think that I can add something from the other investors' perspective, I can.
I mean, it's really before Garrett, we have that same question for Garrett. Don't worry. So
okay.
Don't escape. So just share your ideas. Like,
okay,
what
no,
do you
I'm not
think?
escaping.
I mean, what do you think? Why they invested in you? Let's say the SOSV.
I think because they and also other investors, they see that we are doing something really game changing. We are trying to we are making a new way to shop, which is we see as very revolutionary thing. It's a third way to shop as we see it. So that's obviously, I think, one of the reasons. And second, coming also compared to my previous experience in RoboCV, I see that we here have more diverse experience. We cover mostly all the areas that needs to be covered for a business. Like we have technical expertise, we have business expertise, we have strategy expertise. So I think these are the two main reasons.
So now switching to Garrett, why you invested in Robomart? So I would like you to talk a little bit also the general acceptance criteria for hacks, and then go more specifics for a Robomart's case. So disclosing not private information, but something is not available in media, so something specific.
Okay. Yeah, so the general acceptance criteria for hacks is companies at their very earliest stages, so often pre-seed companies that have a prototype and kind of a market that they're focused on. I would say, and this comes back to Robomart, where we get really excited is when, like Tigran said, is there's a big idea, right? For us, the entire venture capital model is based on small companies, one of the 250 companies that we've invested in turning into a very big company. And that's like, no matter how you do the economics, we require at least a few of our companies becoming very large. So they have to be really big ideas. So we're looking for ideas that are changing distribution models, changing the way things work, changing the overall way that you shop, like Tigran said. But it's not just having kind of big ideas, right? Big fluffy ideas. It's about also having a very strategic and tactical way to enter into that market. So what we were really excited about with Robomart is that they laid out a very specific plan about, okay, we're going to change the way that people shop. Here's what we're doing in the next 6 months to go make money, demonstrate that this is a need, and go and start to gain traction. So it's kind of having that balance of the really big idea and the very specific tactical focused approach. And then I think the thing that ties it all together, Tigran also hit, is the founders that can actually do it. So the combination of the team on Robomart can actually execute on that idea and can actually go bring that to market and start to not just have that very first iteration done, but also as soon as they're successful in the first year, be successful in the second, third, fourth, fifth year, and see this company grow as well. So I think our goal is to see those mixture of things ultimately see the opportunity, the potential for a company that can be very large and very successful.
Thanks. Aksel, as an angel investor who invests in really very early stages, I would like to hear you why you invest, like how you make the decision, and specifically for our case, why did you invest it in Embry?
Well, in very early hardware startups, you don't have, these beautiful charts with weekly growth. You don't have these things. So you have to rely on the information that you have. And knowing it myself, hardware startups are probably the most challenging. Software startups are very challenging. I've done them too. But hardware startups require a lot of resilience. I think it's very complicated. When you have a bug in software, you sit down 5 minutes to 5 hours and you correct it. When you have a bug in hardware and the board takes fire, I don't know. You have a 6-month problem to solve it. So this is, and you have to keep paying people while you solve this problem. So you have to have people who will be able to play music in the street if necessary, to keep the music, keep the company going in the way. So this is what I'm looking for, and I felt that you had it. That was the reason. Among many other reasons, that the product has a lot of potential and everything, and the market can be huge. And in the end of the day, this is what matters. A place also where you have a good team with different personalities, where you can generate ideas, because there is thousands of decisions to make in a product, in any product, but especially in hardware, thousands of micro decisions that each have a huge importance, can break the product. And it must be a place where there is exchange. And I think that's what I saw when I came to your office.
Thanks.
That's
Thanks for sharing that. Arthur, so when you are looking at crowdfunding deals, I know a lot of companies, startups approach you with an ask to launch a crowdfunding campaign. How you select? I know you sometimes also you put money, and sometimes you put your resources and you share part of the raised money. So in that terms, you are also kind of an investor. So I'd like to hear how you choose.
We have a very we found a way to actually select the products which have good potential for crowdfunding campaigns, and we usually aim for products which have at least a potential of raising $1 million or above. So first of all, we always follow the trends, what kind of products are trending, especially in crowdfunding platforms. We do a comparison research on the products to understand whether or not those products are unique. If they, for example, have any competition in the market, what their value proposition is. And we also have a testing method in place, which is like testing. We create special websites for the product and test using those websites. We test the audiences, how they behave, how much they are interested, and whether or not the price of the product is correct for that price, whether or not people are willing to pay that much. So when everything is in place, we can then start prepare for a crowdfunding campaign for that product.
Cool. Thank you. So when starting early, you want to know what are the do's and don'ts, right? You want to know what you should do and what you don't have to do. In terms of fundraising, I would like to hear what do you think? What do you think? What are the top 2-3 do's and don'ts? Let's start with Garrett.
Oh, okay. So I would say the first things that that is very easy for us to say no. So something you definitely should do is talking to your customers. So if you haven't spoken to customers or gotten any feedback, then like it's just not even a good place to start. We often also only look for our investment, only look at companies that have multiple founders on the team. So somebody who's alone in working on their own idea, we often won't invest. And that's often because if you can't find other people to work with you, it means you can't find the next 10 people or 100 people, or even convince investors or business partners to come with you. So we often, we say you should go find co-founders that want to work with you. And then I think the other do would be finding, don't be afraid do be aspirational in terms of what you want to create. So we aren't looking for small incremental businesses that slowly grow. We're looking for businesses that can grow quickly. I would say the don'ts would be more along the lines of, you can flip these on do's and don'ts very easily, but I would say talk to many investors. So you're going to be said no to a lot. That's just the nature of how things are. You're going to talk to 50 investors and 49 of them are going to say no to you. And that's okay. And having that resilience to go find that person that wants to be your partner. So I guess the don't is don't give up. And then I would say some of the other don'ts are also know when to hear a no and walk away. So there's many times that I'll say no to a company and they won't stop bothering me, even though I've made it very clear I won't invest. So knowing when to be thoughtful and considerate of other people as well. I can probably think of a very long list of do's and don'ts, but those are some ones that quickly come to mind.
Okay, thanks. Tigran?
Yeah, I'll just add a few things that I think from the entrepreneur perspective, not only from entrepreneur, but especially in the fundraising. So I think it's important not to over estimate the value of. I mean, the brands or the names are important, but you should not pay a lot of attention to it. You should always talk to all the available people or reach out to people and find that investors or angels that are really excited about what you are doing, that there's a like mutual respect. You see that you can work together in the future as partners. That's very important. So I would say don't just like, if you heard a lot of people saying some name of the VC, it does not mean that we should focus only to that VCs or angels to get investment from. Always try to find from diverse community and find people that really fits your common future. That's I think one of the important things. In the early stage, it's also like in pre-seed stage. It's I've heard that a lot of entrepreneurs are working a lot on trying to get like better valuation or better deal. I would say don't focus on that too much in the very early stage. That's probably a few of the things that I can say.
Thanks, Tigran John. Aksel?
Yes, so the first thing in hardware startups, I think you need to always make sure you have money. It's a very costly thing, prototyping. You should always make sure to have more money than you think you need, because you will need more than you think you need, but always be looking for the money. Never say no to an investor, never say no to a round extension if someone comes, because you may regret it. It happened to me, so I'm saying. So you don't say no to money too easily. Experts, it's usually what you're gonna do. Usually, is going to involve many different technologies, n'est-ce pas? Many different technologies, many different knowledge, and you should have experts in different fields at hand. Like you can call them immediately and have critical information from researchers, from known universities. Try to create a network of experts around you, and talk to investors. They will tell you better than you think you know the truth, but talking with investors will put you on the right path. So talk to a lot of them. It takes time. It's hard, but don't go into stretches of multiple months where you don't see an investor. Try to at least have like an exercise, see an investor regularly to have some feedback, actual feedback. And in the don'ts, don't go for a product too fast. Take your time. The market is probably going very fast. You may not arrive first, but in hardware, it's important to arrive. It's not easy to arrive. Hundreds of projects occur, and usually 1 to 2% become products that stay in the market. So take your time. Once you have launched the product, it's practically impossible in reality to completely change the product. It's possible to add one feature at a time, but it's not possible to say, okay, let's redo a new product. On paper, it's possible, but in real life, you will see it's not possible. You better make sure your design, your choices are the right ones and are going to stand the test of time. That your choices are still valid 5 years down the road. And this is not easy. That's why you shouldn't rush.
Yeah, absolutely. Arthur, do you have something? Would you like to add something to this topic?
Yeah, sure. I can add a few do's and not to do's for preparing for a crowdfunding campaign. So the first thing would be always do your homework. Like I've seen a lot of promising crowdfunding campaigns which raise like 6 figures and then they fail to deliver because their initial calculations were wrong. They didn't actually know how much it will cost to produce those products and how much the shipment will cost, etc. So always do your homework. Talk to shipment companies, fulfillment companies, know the prices for shipments, talk to your manufacturers if you are going to outsource that process. So you know your costs, yeah? So that when the crowdfunding campaign is over, you will be able to deliver actually to those backers. The other thing is a must-do is always test your product before launching a crowdfunding campaign because like I said, there are expenses for a crowdfunding campaign, and before even launching your crowdfunding campaign, you still need to invest some funds. So it's better to test your product's market, understand whether or not there is a market, whether or not the price you are planning to sell for is a good price for the product, and then only start planning for the crowdfunding campaigns. And as for something not to do, I would definitely not recommend anybody to launch just because they want to launch like in a certain time. So for example, if you are planning to launch in 2 months and then when the 2 months pass by and you say, okay, if you see that you're not ready to launch, you still have to do more, never launch until you are 100% sure that you are ready for the launch.
Thank you. So the next question is not directly related to fundraising, but based on that, startups usually fundraise. So how long it takes to the first sales for hardware startup? I'm not talking about pre-orders, pilots, stuff like that. The first real sales when you deliver the product, and how many times you were cash burnout or close to that during that. So while you have your first sale, I would like to hear Tigran's and Aksel's thoughts. So Tigran, can you start?
Yeah. So if we are not talking about pilots, I mean, with Robomart, we are planning to launch soon. So when we launch, that will be probably, I would say, that the first real sale. So we can talk about it later. But I can tell a few words about my previous company. It also, I think, it depends on on what kind of hardware you are building and what kind of product or service you are selling. So RoboCV was building industrial robots, so it's very long cycle. Like we were spending about a year maybe talking to companies. It also might be dependent on the location. Maybe in Russia it was hard because they don't know about automation too much. They usually don't invest in automation. So it was taking a long time, like a year or maybe 1.5 years until we closed the deal.
Tigran, sorry to interrupt. I think I put it the question in not in the way I wanted. So okay. It's not about sales process. I mean, when you have the product to sell, like that point that you have something to sell, from the starting to the point when you have something to sell, how long it takes and how many times you were cash burnout or close to that.
Okay, so again, coming back to RoboCV, I can sell it probably took for the first product about a year. Again, it depends on the type of the product. Here in Robomart, as I told already, that we are launching soon. So at that point, we can start talking about the first real sale. About burnouts, I don't remember the exact number, but it was probably around I don't know, 3 times in RoboCV and maybe similar number in Robomart. So sometimes it's really becoming hard. You are almost coming to zero, and you need to again reinvent yourself somehow and then do something really new so you can continue working. But you need to persevere. There's no other way.
Thanks, Tigran. Then Aksel?
I've seen 2 extreme cases. In my previous experience, we made 360-degree camera. We had a lot of money. We had raised quite a bit. And we get the best experts in the Silicon Valley, where it's amazing to release a prototype very fast. And in 6 months, we had a product that we could show and make a round of crowdfunding with. In the current startup, it's the complete opposite situation. It's very challenging. It's a very new technology. It's about neurosensing. It's extremely challenging. We don't know. Nobody really knows exactly how the neurons work, how the signals go through the brain. So there is a lot of testing. There is a lot of things we discovered, we patent. It's been already 5 years since the startup was founded, and still there is no mainstream product in this market where there are billions invested. It's not just us. There's lots of companies trying to do this. So it's about staying afloat until the time comes. As I said, in my case, I'm trying to push forward as much as possible the moment when we launch a product. It's quite the opposite of the previous experience, actually, where you had to be the first in the shelf. Here it's about staying in the market with the best technology to be bought, maybe not for the market shelf at best point that you will have developed, but for the right technology at the right time for the company that wants to go in this market. So this is our current vision. So doing B2B products instead of quickly doing a B2C thing.
So it takes, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have both examples. The first one didn't succeed, so
okay.
maybe this one will be more successful.
Okay, then I'll now switch back to Tigran and ask this question. Like, you can bring specific case or talk generally. How do you handle the relationships with investors when you promise to be already selling, but it's not happening because the product is not there yet? So there are issues with hardware you were planning to launch, but it's not coming that easy, and you are cash burnout already. What are your actions? What you do?
Okay, so I'll try to combine our overall perspective of the company, because usually relations with investors is handling my co-founder, but I'm of course aware of all the things happening. First of all, before setting some deadline, we discuss. As I'm the CTO, I usually I work a lot with risks, I would say. So with technical risks, I try to, I already made a habit of writing down all the risks and really following them until I de-risked everything. So again, I mean, might seem a bit bureaucratic and heavy, but from my experience, previous company, I've seen that when you don't do that, you missed your targets a lot. You don't know what are your risks, and you can't plan. So I try to do that in order for us to be able to understand when we can really launch. So first of all, what I'm trying to say is that I try to be realistic with the launch date. That's one of the part of the equation. So that we don't tell dates that are too early. And the second, if that comes to the situation when we have the issue, we are not launching on time as we expected, then of course we discuss, and usually my co-founder reach out to the investor. Of course, what I've seen and I really value from my co-founder Ali, he's always he's doing about like monthly or in 2 months he's sending an update to stakeholders, all the stakeholders, so they are always informed what's happening. But in this kind of situation, when we come to, let's say, we are almost out of money, or we are delaying the launch, or some event, then we just reach out to people, we explain the situation. If we are seeking some additional support, we can think who we can reach out to and do that also.
Cool,
usually our investors were really helpful, I would say. They continue supporting us. So
I'm going to ask your investors. Okay. Garrett, I would like to hear your thoughts. Like, have you seen this situation when some of your portfolio companies come back to you saying that plans didn't work in a way we were planning? Now we are short in cash. We are already out of cash, and how founders are handling this situation, and how you as an investor come in and what you do.
Yeah, so I mean, it definitely happens. So just the nature of doing a startup is that you always be wrong about something. Our goal is to make sure that we, similar to what Tigran said, is understand our assumptions and our risks to the point where if you have a risk about whether there's market acceptance or risk around this combination of technologies will work or not, and we share the understanding, then that's part of our job, right? Our job is to put money in to take those risks And if it doesn't work or it's a little bit harder, we understand that, and we can talk about paths forward. That being said, it's always a really bad idea to go to your investors when you're exactly out of money. That pressure isn't, hey, we're out of money, we need it tomorrow. It's always best to, like, I think Robomart does a really good job, where it's just saying, hey, here's a monthly update. Here's what's going on. Here's how things are looking. And there's no surprises. It's not a kind of surprise we're doing this or doing that. So finding both patient people, but also communicating. I think the thing that we don't like is being surprised by risks or assumptions that we didn't want to bet on. So if you're fighting between two founders and that's causing everything to slow down, or you're not actually putting enough money into your marketing spend or putting enough money into your R&D, like you're making putting more risk into the company than your investor assumes, that's when we get a little upset and how our money's being used. So I would say the very important thing for your investors is agreeing or communicating what is the fundamental risk that you think or assumption that you think about the future that you're betting on, and making sure that everything revolves around that. Because it's okay if you miss that, because that's what we're betting on as well.
Cool, thanks. I'm running out of my questions, so it's time to switch to the audience. We have really great questions here. I would like you to cover them all. So we'll start from Levon Hovanesyan. Levon is asking to share, please, your top 3 practical tips for an aspiring entrepreneur. Aksel, can you start?
It's a very difficult question. So first, try to know more about yourself, what kind of entrepreneur you are. I think this is, you learn a lot about yourself in a company, yeah? But it's important to know what are your strengths and weaknesses, and try to find, if necessary, a partner that will complement you to make a stronger team. So that's my first thing. In my first startup, I didn't know this, so that's why it was 20 years ago. Huh? But I think this is important to start. It's an important starting point. Try to know about the funding opportunities you have in your country. Usually there are a lot, but a lot of entrepreneurs start without having the information, any piece of, they just start, they just go and create a company, incorporate, and sometimes it's too late to ask for this grant. So take your time, don't rush. Take a few weeks to get this information. And yeah, it's an exciting way of life. Huh? And myself, I'm addicted to it. So most certainly you will not regret it, even if it doesn't succeed in the end, in terms of an exit or something. But it's a way of life. Huh? You have to know to get ready for ups and downs in this way of life. It's an exciting way of living.
Thanks, Aksel. Arthur? So the question is, share please your top 3 practical tips for an aspiring entrepreneur.
Well, since I'm not an entrepreneur myself, I can give you tips I gave a few questions ago. Always do your homework. Yeah. Always do your homework, never rush. And always, perhaps maybe the third one will be
think big.
Think big.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Think big. Always, yeah, this one is my favorite tip. Actually, like always aim for as high as possible, even if you think that you can't reach that high. Even if you think you can't, you should try to reach that high, because it might be a surprise for you, and you might even reach those heights.
Okay, Garrett, what about you?
Ooh, so I think similar to things we've said so far, like first find other people and build a community. So make sure you're not alone, because that never works out well. Second would be talk to customers. So always be having conversations with customers, almost count down to the last time that you talked to a customer. And third, I would say have big aspirations, have a very strong vision for what you want to build in the far future, but be very nimble in how you get there. So don't have a very specific, if the way that you're doing something in the next 6 months isn't working, be okay to shift that, as long as it's still on that path to the vision you want to create. So strong future vision, but very nimble approach to get there.
Thank you. Tigran?
Some of the things in other ways, but first of all, aspiring entrepreneur, I would say just
Tigran, we can't hear you. Tigran? It seems Tigran has an issue with network. Can you hear me well? Yeah, okay. So let's switch to the next question. Rafael Gasabian asking really great question. What is your recommendation for a hardware company which operates in an industrial domain and have low risk of failure, but don't have the high growth rate expected by VCs? From where can they raise money? Garrett, can you share your thoughts?
So we actually invest in quite a few industrial companies, but do have high expectations for growth. So I think often what we see for industrial companies is that there is maybe slow sales cycles, but much larger contracts and much larger markets that don't exist anywhere else in the world. So there's trillion-dollar markets that exist in these industrial sectors. So I would say finding a way that your business model might address some larger markets or larger portions of the offering is one way to make it more attractive for VCs. But otherwise, other sources are grant money. So oftentimes there's, depending on what you're working on, there are existing grants that exist for whether you're doing something with clean tech or decreasing the amount of energy used in an industrial plant or increasing efficiency. There's a lot of grants that are available. And then the other thing is, if you're able to find a stable enough base and get cash flows on your business, more traditional either debt financing or either small business loans are more available to you. So if you are very low risk and have cash, you can usually find small amounts of low interest or high value loans in that space as well.
Thanks. Aksel, do you have any thoughts to share?
Yeah, I would add that if the business has a social impact, let's say in a general sense, there are a lot of investors that don't think like VCs and who can put small tickets because they find the idea great. I have some friends who raised quite a few million without VCs to install solar panels in Africa to give electricity to people in remote areas. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to make money. It's very capital intensive and so on. But still, because of this social impact, they manage to raise money from individuals, from governments. So it's possible. And outside of that, I would say it's okay not to be a startup. Okay, it's a panel about startups. We see on TV, we see great successful startup entrepreneurs, billionaires, but it's okay not to be a startup. It's okay to be a local entrepreneur doing a great thing and giving jobs to people as well. And I would like to stress that because this is not something you hear so often. So it's okay. It's okay to go to your bank and ask for a loan to do something, and say, I'm not going to be on the Dow. I'm not going to be on the Dow Jones. I'm going to be a great local entrepreneur. I would say that.
Okay, cool. Thank you. We have a set of questions from Armine. Question for entrepreneurs. Two entrepreneurs in the panel. In your experience, is fundraising for hardware company different from software? If yes, how? Tigran, if you have experience in software as well, or maybe you have, so go ahead and share your thoughts.
I don't think I can give maybe a full answer, but I'll try to. So I think that all the differences coming from the nature of the work you are doing. With software you can iterate very fast. You can do like big changes in a small amount of time. With hardware, you can do it. You need to plan out. There are always things that need to go a long time. There are a lot of interdependencies, so it affects your timelines. It affects your cash needs. That affects, of course, your fundraising. So usually that's why I would say that there's bigger need for cash is also because you have a lot of hardware to buy, but also because you are not as flexible as software startups. You can't do like a lot of changes, even pivoting a lot. So I would say, you need to be just realistic. What are your needs in terms of funding, and go out there and try to raise it. It will be hard. I mean, everyone knows that's hard for fundraising for hardware is hard. But yeah, that's what I can add probably.
Aksel, can you add something?
Yes, there are not many funds that like to invest in hardware because it's very specific. You don't have this beautiful weekly chart, as I said. It's so a lot of people don't like to invest in this. Individual investors as well, they don't like it. They don't understand why they should wait 2 years before hoping to one day make some money on their investment. It's a different set of people. It's a different set of people. You are not talking to the same people the same way. In software, as soon as I could show a chart, I would get a yes or no very quickly. Here, it's a lot more difficult. You have to go into lengthy explanations, try to give to explain your vision. It's not the same. I would say really the most important is not the same set of people. And even the people who invest in hardware, I don't know about hacks, but they say don't do it. Go into software if you can. Don't say you are a hardware startup. Otherwise, oh my God, it's the end of the world. So they try to discourage you. Try to say, are you really a hardware startup? Do you need to really go and do this hardware, or could you just be, sell your license for yourself? This is how hard it is. Nobody wants to make it. Nobody wants to finance it. But still, this phenomenon of hardware startups exists. So, so we are here to talk about it. But it is 10 times harder, I think, in terms of energy you have to put in. Well, it's a fact of life.
Yeah, I would like to also share my thoughts on that. Of course, raising for hardware is really hard, and it takes long because you want to raise from people who understand hardware, who have the experience investing in hardware, but those people are limited, and it's really hard to find them who can understand, and fundraising takes really long, and you kind of need, when you are raising, you are a hardware startup and you are raising from investors who are experienced in software. You try to show yourself like as a software like company, and you try to show that like everything with hardware is okay. We're gonna handle that. Now let's talk about other things because they don't understand the hardware, and here in the especially in early stages, relationship takes the lead. So you need to build a relationship, which takes time. So early on, once you have the idea, go out there and start building relationship with investors, because with hardware, you are not appealing enough. You are not easy exit. It will take long to exit. So then investors have to know you, have to like you. So they make a decision easier. Then I'd like to switch to Garrett. The same kind of question, but from your perspective, what are the things you pay attention to most when funding hardware companies? Like what specific things related to hardware are you looking?
Yeah, so maybe I guess just a follow up of why. So everybody's conversations about hardware fundraising is difficult, but that's actually why we like it. So if everybody else is going and investing in software companies, they're often not actually making technology investments. They're making marketing and market distribution investments. So if I can write a piece of software very easily, that means 3 other investors are investing in 3 other companies that where all of our dollars are going to fight against each other for a market leader. Versus if we can come in and actually invest in technology and application of technology that nobody else is working on, that's where the big wins potentially happen, right? So if you seem like things like Tesla or SpaceX coming out, those are because everybody thought it was too hard, and that's where big things actually emerge. So that's why we continue to do it. So we often need to see that bigger vision and know that the journey is going to be very difficult, but it's going to be worth it at the very end. So some of the specific things that we're looking for are understanding that larger market, having either a defensibility around technology or your path to bring that technology to market. And then again, I double down on the team, building the team. And again, like a software oriented investment, you can have maybe a back-end person and a front-end person and a business person. But if you're a hardware team, oftentimes you need a back-end person on software, front-end person on software, somebody does firmware, somebody does electronics, somebody that does mechanical, somebody that does manufacturing. And you can't have all those at the very beginning. So having the right team and group of people that can come together to work on these very complex problems, and then having a path in order to scale a team that can deliver that. So those are often the things that we look for, and finding the right partners that can help you get there. So hardware is hard, but if you put together the right team, it's all very doable as well. Like people have been manufacturing products and building robots for decades, and it's not an impossible task. It's just a matter of bringing together the right people to actually get the job done.
Thanks. Next 2 questions to Garrett. Nara Gevorkyan is asking, what was your fastest decision to invest? Few hours, minutes, in which company and why?
I probably can't say which company, but we have made investment decisions in the matter of hours. So we don't make these unilaterally. We have a team. There's 3 of us that work on the new investment team, and we all make sure that we talk to the company, understand it. But there are sometimes very clear signs that the team knows what they're doing and needs to move fast. So we have made decisions in the matter of hours and days. But sometimes it takes longer. If the technology is very complex and it's something that we don't understand, sometimes it takes a couple weeks for us to really understand the technology enough to be comfortable to invest in it.
Okay, thank you. And the last question from the audience, Aksel is asking, have you invested in cheap ASIC development company? Question is to Garrett.
We have evaluated quite a few, so ranging from ASICs to kind of other new forms of silicon development or kind of some cutting edge stuff around photonics. So we have evaluated quite a bit. We don't have anything in our portfolio, and I think that's a unique form of hardware that requires a very different investment profile. That being said, we always are evaluating, just looking for that right thing. And I think one of the things that helps is for both this and the previous question, investors usually always like other investors also coming in with them. So for example, with ASICs, if you can find other investors that maybe you find 250,000 here and $500,000 over here, and you're able to bring that together, you'll actually find that more investors will come in because their cash is de-risked on your very complex investment because other people are also contributing cash. And oftentimes, especially in today's environment where there's a lot of uncertainty, having other people that are also backing you helps you as you get into these more complex projects like new silicon chips.
Thank you, Garrett. So I'll add from my side the last question. I would like to start with Tigran. What kind of investors to seek? What is your advice on that? And what kind of investors to avoid?
I think I can probably repeat what I was telling. So about seeking, again, as I told, you need to find people that you are really finding interesting to work with. You see the mutual respect, they understand what you are doing, they see that why is your service or product is valuable, and you see that you can work together for a long time. So everything like opposite to this, I would say, just even if they want to invest, I would say be cautious, because it's not that they are bad people. No, it's just like your relationship probably is not going to work in the future.
I see. Thank you, Aksel.
Yeah, the best investor is in an early stage, I would call the champion. You know, the guy who can who can write a big check, follow on, and open his address book to you. Not every startup manages to get this kind of investor, but it's an amazing thing when it happens. It's great. So try to look for this kind of people. Don't hesitate to look for big names in your country, famous people in their field. It sometimes works, you know. It sometimes works, and when it works, it's amazing, because going for 10K checks, it's really hard. It's really time-consuming. I would say they are great people. Some of them are going to indeed help you, but most of them won't. So, and you still have to send them the same paperwork to get their approval and so on. It's try to avoid as much as possible that. And of course, if you can have investors such as Hacks and such accelerators, of course, it's amazing, and it will make your life easier.
Thanks, Aksel. Arthur, do you have any advice on that topic?
I can give some advice with some recent cases I encountered with some of our partners for whom we rank crowdfunding campaigns. Don't work with investors who try to micromanage you. Don't look for those type of investors. I saw several cases recently that because of the investors trying to micromanage the crowdfunding campaign itself, those campaigns actually failed. That's my advice.
Thanks. Garrett, what about you?
I would just add to what everybody's saying. Like, find investors that you're willing to be partners with. So when we're investing, we are hopefully buying into your company and being part of your company for 10 years. And to the previous question, sometimes making a 10-year decision in a matter of hours is actually not the right one, right? You need to understand, can I work with this person? Can I have a meaningful discussion? Can they help me? Are they going to get in the way? Are they going to be annoying? So really understanding the person that you're working with, and not just looking for money, because that can lead to very bad things or very good things, depending on who you bring into your company as a partner.
Great, thank you. So this is all. Thank you all for joining. Thanks for your time and willingness to share your knowledge with the community. We really appreciate that. I enjoyed the conversation a lot. Thank you for all the audience who joined to hear your thoughts. Thank you all. Thanks organizers, and especially Anna. She's organizing everything from the backstage. In the upcoming weeks, there will be more panel discussions on different topics: how to build your MVP with AWS, how to sell to corporate customers, other discussions about diaspora communities and Armenia tech ecosystem, and more. So stay tuned, follow the YouTube page so you can be informed. Thank you all. Have a nice day or evening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.